Some of the loneliest people I know are also the people who want connection the most deeply. They're not indifferent. They're not cold. They're not incapable of love. They're often people who have spent years just imagining what it would feel like to be deeply known, to have someone notice when they go quiet, to ask the right kinds of questions, to feel safe enough to tell the truth before they've polished it into something that's easier to understand. They want connection. And still, when someone tries to move in for that connection, something in them will pull away. They'll change the subject. They'll take too long to respond. They'll say, I'm fine, before they even consider whether they actually are. They convince themselves the other person doesn't really care about them. They even become suspicious of kindness. They can find a flaw in the relationship. And they will leave before they can be left. And then they'll sit alone, wondering why no one can reach them. And this is the painful paradox that I really want to talk about today, because we can long for connection and still choose loneliness over the vulnerability that comes with connection. Not because loneliness feels better, but because it feels familiar. And familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar possibility. Loneliness is painful, but it is predictable. When you are alone, you can feel sad and long for the people. You can wish that someone would call you. You can feel unseen, but you also know the shape of the experience. There's no one that can misunderstand you, no one that can disappoint you, no one whose opinion might begin to matter in your world, no one to ask something of you when you don't know how to give it, no one to get close enough to leave you. So connection introduces uncertainty. Someone might care about you, but that care might arrive imperfectly. They might love you, but still miss something that you consider important. They might ask you what you need, but you might not know how to answer. They might misunderstand you, which means you have to decide how you explain yourself. They might become important enough that losing them would hurt. And loneliness might be painful, but connection raises the stakes. Many of us don't consciously decide, well, I'd rather be lonely. The decision happens much faster than that. In a split second, a message can arrive and we feel this internal pressure to respond. Someone can ask us how we're doing and our mind goes blank. A person can offer us support and we immediately think about how we're going to have to repay them. Someone might want to know us better and we keep searching for evidence that they can't be trusted. So the internal response might sound something like, don't need too much, don't say too much, don't become too dependent on them, don't relax yet, don't let this matter because it'll break your heart. Those instructions can even become things that feel like our personality. They feel like our intuition. But sometimes they're old protective rules. Rules that were written when closeness really did cost something. Maybe honesty once led to you being criticized. Maybe your needs were ignored so you learned not to have them. Maybe affection disappeared when you became inconvenient. Maybe you were loved most when you were useful, agreeable, quiet, or easy. Maybe being known gave someone more material to use against you in the future. If connection once required you to abandon yourself, then it makes sense that some part of you'd resist it now. That part isn't trying to ruin your relationships. It's trying to prevent history from repeating itself. But protective strategies have one serious limitation. They are often better at recognizing familiarity than context. A delayed reply could feel like abandonment. A simple question can feel like an interrogation. A misunderstanding can feel like a final verdict of our worth. A request for closeness can feel like suffocation. The body doesn't always say, this person is unsafe. Sometimes it says, I felt something like this before and I didn't like it. Those aren't the same message. And this is where I have to be careful, because I'm not suggesting that every fear that you have is outdated. I'm not suggesting that you should override or ignore your discomfort, your instincts, or give access to people who haven't earned it. Some doors need to stay closed. Some people have shown us that they cannot be trusted with our vulnerability. Some relationships feel unsafe because they are unsafe. The goal isn't to become available to everyone. It's to become more discerning, to learn the difference between a boundary and a barricade. A boundary says, you may come in this far. A barricade says, no one will ever get close enough to hurt me again. A boundary can respond to what's happening now. A barricade is responding to what's happened before. And from the inside, those can sometimes feel almost identical. So how do we begin to leave the door ajar? Not throw it wide open, not hand someone a key for unlimited access, just enough space for new information to enter. The first practice I'm going to share is to pause before disappearing. When you feel the urge to withdraw, don't force yourself to stay fully engaged. But before you leave, ask, what just happened? What did I feel in my body? What am I afraid is going to happen next? Is this person doing something that makes me feel unsafe? Or is my mind filling in the ending before the time has allowed it to unfold? You may even decide that you still want to step back, but now the choice belongs to you and not a reflex. The second practice is to replace disappearing with a small amount of truth. You don't have to explain your entire history to someone. You might say, I want to answer you, but I need a little bit of time. Or, I've noticed part of me is pulling away right now, and I just want you to know. Or, I'm not ready to talk about everything, but I don't want to shut you out completely. Or, I'm overwhelmed, and I need to come back to this later. This is what leaving the door ajar can look like. You're not offering unlimited access. You're letting the other person know that your silence is not necessarily their rejection. You're staying connected to them without abandoning yourself. The third practice is to ask for something small. Many of us wait until the need becomes an emergency because ordinary needing feels way too vulnerable. So we do not ask for reassurance. We wait until we are certain that the relationship is ending. We do not ask for support. We wait until it all feels like it's collapsing in on us. We do not ask someone to listen. We wait until resentment builds up inside and has convinced us that they don't care. So try making the request smaller and offering it earlier. Hey, can you check in with me about this tomorrow? Can you sit with me for a few minutes? Can you tell me what you meant by that? Hey, I don't need you to solve this for me. I just need you to listen. Small requests give us information. Does this person respect the limit? Do they respond with care? Can they hear our no and not take it as a punishment? Can they misunderstand us and then offer an opportunity for repair? Trust doesn't have to arrive as a feeling before we act. Sometimes it's built by gathering evidence slowly over time. The fourth practice is to let the other person respond before deciding what their response means. If we're expecting rejection, we often interpret quickly. A pause can become disinterest. An awkward answer can become proof they don't really get us. A mistake can become evidence that closeness was unsafe all along. But people can care about us and still respond imperfectly. Connection creates room for clarification. You can ask, when you said that, what exactly did you mean? I noticed I started telling myself that you were upset with me. Is that true? I think I may have filled in the silence with an old story. Now, this is a lot more vulnerable, but it's also how relationships become real. Not through never misunderstanding one another, but through discovering whether misunderstandings can be repaired. And then finally, you might notice who you're trying to let in. Leaving the door ajar is not only about changing your own behavior, it's also about watching what someone does with the opening you give them. Do they rush through it? Do they push when you ask for more time? Do they punish you for having a hesitation? Do they make your boundaries into something about their rejection? Or do they wait? Do they listen? Do they allow closeness to move at the speed of trust? Because a trustworthy person will not demand that you prove your healing by becoming immediately accessible. They help to create conditions for which openness becomes possible between both of you. And you may have spent years believing that loneliness happened because no one came close enough to notice you. And perhaps sometimes that was absolutely true. People failed you. They didn't notice. They didn't ask. They didn't stay. But there also might have been moments when someone moved closer and an old part of you began to quietly and quickly close the door. That realization isn't an accusation. I've done it a lot. But this realization is an opening because what we've learned can be examined, and what happened automatically at one time can now become a choice. You don't have to open the door today. You don't have to explain your entire life to someone, and you don't have to trust someone just because they want to be trusted by you. But perhaps when connection feels possible, you can pause before locking the door. You can ask whether the danger is present in the moment or just familiar. You can offer an honest sentence or make a small request, or let the other person show you who they are. And you can remember that closeness does not require you to abandon yourself. The door can remain slightly ajar. You can stand beside the door. You can listen. You can look again. And when you're ready, you can decide what happens next. Thank you for being here today. If this resonated, please consider sharing with a friend or subscribing. And each week, I share tips and strategies for letting in more joy, ease, peace, rest, delight, connection, and wonder. And I'd love to have you join me. See you next week.